Alright, let it never be said that I don't respond to feedback. I spent some time overnight testing a lot of viewer feedback to our latest video, and in this video, I'm going to lay out the results of all of that testing. Hi, it's Lerald, and I'm going to talk even more about stacked deck farming, which I still think is pretty great and super simple, so let's just get right into it, like and subscribe, blah blah blah. Alright, so the two primary pieces of feedback that I received were that 1, you really need to run 5 div scarabs of the cloister if you're going to do this strategy at all, and that you need to do this strategy with ritual. Now as for the first point, we can just look at the scarab and say, yeah, this makes sense. The final line of the scarab says right there, it grants 1% additional chance to drop a stacked deck to all of the, we're going to continue calling them Deidre's devoted monsters. This is additive, it says additional, so by having 4 of these, it gives them 4% chance, 5 of them 5% chance. I recommended using a monstrous lineage for more magic pack size, which would give you more guys to kill across the entire map, including these guys, but you know, more generic drops, maybe that's good, but really no question it results in fewer stacked decks, and I think it's worse. There were also a lot of comments from people saying they had gotten 100 plus stacked decks in a single map with this strategy using ritual. That sounds great, but suspiciously they never mentioned how long those maps took. So the big positive of ritual is that it lets you kill monsters near the ritual a second time, and the cloister monsters will spawn a second time and drop stacked decks a second time as well. This is all really good. The downside of ritual is it adds a lot of time to your maps. Even if you can one-shot everything, which I can, it's just not a fast mechanic at all. So in order to test this out, I set forth to do 20 maps total, 10 maps with mostly the same setup as before, running 10 8-mod underground C maps with 5 div scarabs of the cloister and no ritual, and then another 10 with those same 5 scarabs, but also running ritual. Now I have 2 Atlas passive trees that I can pull up here, and we'll start with this first one here just to kind of quickly run with it. This is the one without ritual. It's very similar to the one I had set up before, except I have taken pretty much all of the map drop nodes. I didn't come around and take Shaping the World, I just didn't have the points for it. We're still spec'd into shrines, I still like shrines, still have blocker nodes, still have pack size, influence mob pack size, still have all the scarab nodes that we possibly can get. Pretty much all the same, just adding in map drops. That's really all that it is, and we're doing that trying to fish for more tier 17 maps, which was successful. Now in the ritual setup, I don't have as many blocker or scarab nodes. I can't even come over here and take this whole right side. I unfortunately can't block ritual nodes, which were ritual scarabs, which would be nice. The ritual scarabs are all pretty worthless, but that would prevent me from spawning rituals, so kind of a problem. We are taking pretty much all of the ritual nodes. The only thing that I think maybe is justifiable to drop is this whole wheel that kind of interacts with re-rolling ritual and making it cheaper and letting you re-roll it multiple times. You could justify dropping all of this and then pathing through this arm here, and then just taking Immutable Dogma, so you can't reroll your rituals at all. This means less chance to play around with stuff, but you can just basically buy everything that's on the sheet that pops up at the end, and then if anything is good there, good, and if not, not good, and then you move on to the next map, and you don't really care that much about the ritual, you just sort of clear the map out, and then that would allow you to come over here and take some more blocker nodes, block some stuff like Mirrors of Delirium, Blight Encounters, or even take this shrine wheel again. I have the rest of the shrine nodes, but I don't have all that glitters, unfortunately, and I did have to drop 2 scarab nodes here as well. Other than that, it's mostly still the same tree. Taking all the quant and rarity, taking all the map mod effect, doing all the normal juicing stuff. For both setups, I did run domination on the map device, really just trying to force as many guys into the maps as I can. Alright, and now let's take a look at the results. So first I want to start with a run from yesterday just to compare. This was 20 maps, about 26 stacked decks per map, a handful of valuable drops, you know, a Valdo's Puzzle Box, a Containment Scarab, 6 Ziggurat maps, so like a Ziggurat map every, what is that, 3.5 maps or so, a little under 9 divines per hour. Not amazing, but definitely not bad for a very simple farming strategy. Also about 4 to 5 minutes a map. I said 4.5 on average. I thought that was about right. I'm okay with this. Now to compare this to the 5 Cloister Scarab setup, and I've done a little bit of reformatting to make this look a little bit better. I've also done an upgrade to my character just to kind of look at it. I got a Mage Blood. I am running a full-on Gold Flask, kind of spoiling tomorrow's video, but I have a lot of rarity now. I went from probably an average of about 35% rarity before to a permanent 185% rarity. So that has definitely played somewhat of a role in this, probably more in the gold than in the currency per hour, but honestly, maybe in the currency per hour as well. Okay, so again, roughly the same time per map. I actually think slightly longer on average with 5 Cloister Scarabs, since there are so many more stacked decks to pick up. I literally think I spent more time even with moving faster and having a Mage Blood, just by walking around picking up them decks, working my wrist a bit. So very close div per hour, 9.25 versus close enough to 9 to just call it 9. That's so small of a difference, I don't really think it means much. And, one good drop can totally shift that. I didn't really get any valuable drops in the first setup. I have that div tab here, regular dump tab. I got 1 regular Divine Orb, I got a very bad replica Dragonfang's Flight, and 4 Ziggurat maps. And then 411 stacked decks in 10 maps. That's 41 stacked decks a map. That is more than 26 or 27 stacked decks a map. Noticeably so. No real surprises though, this is better, it's more consistent, even if it's not making a lot more per hour, it's definitely more consistent, and consistency is good. Now let's take a look at the returns on the ritual farm strategy. And this is shockingly close in terms of divines per hour. This is a really big surprise to me because on the very first map of this strategy, I got a currency duplication altar mod on the very first pack. And I got one of the 2 Valdo puzzle boxes. I have that tab pulled up here. I got 2 Valdo's puzzle boxes, a Raw Divine Orb, 1 Forbidden Tome, 3 Ziggurat maps, which is about consistent with what I had gotten yesterday, 6 and 20, 3 and 10. That lines up pretty much right. And then a handful of random garbage from the ritual that wasn't really worth much. This kind of low value Cloak of Defiance, this low value ritual base, this bad synth jewel, this bad fractured jewel, a couple of fortunate cards, cool. A perfect guardian turtle, okay, I guess. A bunch of worthless omens, sure, why not? And then I also got 588 stacked decks. Now this is a lot more stacked decks in total. The thing that is surprising to me here is that after that first map, and then after the third map where I got a currency duplication altar right at the start again and walked out of that map with 69 stacked decks, my personal high for this little test, I expected this strategy would pull away, but it didn't. Ritual is such a time waster, and it really didn't provide anything of value to justify the time expenditure on its own. I expected it to add about 90 seconds to 2 minutes to each map, but it actually wound up adding 2.5 minutes per map. There were actually few maps that I finished in under 7 minutes, all told, which is an insanely slow clear speed, especially with a Mage Blood. That is wildly slow. I was one-shotting all the mobs that spawn in the ritual, and it just is such a slow mechanic. Now, I think this would be faster on a less twisty map like Jungle Valley or Dunes. I think doing this all on Jungle Valley, doing all these comparisons side by side on Jungle Valley, Ritual might pull ahead more. But the other strategies would be faster there too, so I'm not totally convinced. I do feel that I got luckier in terms of random drops from Ritual, such as the 2 Valdo's puzzle boxes, but I'm willing to attribute that to Ritual adding in more guys. Empyrean's group, as far as I understand, love adding in Ritual on their farm strats at the very start of a league, not because they do the rituals, but because rituals will add packs of guys. They're sort of like a supercharged version of a shrine without the buff. The only problem with that is that in this league, they add Affliction League monsters. That's something that was added in patch 3.25, and those dudes suck. So Ritual is dangerous now, even if you don't actually run the rituals. Just having them in your maps at all and spawning monsters is bad enough. Now, with all of this being said, Ritual was way more cost effective. If we look at the return on investment, I'm more than tripling my money with Ritual, and I'm doubling my money and then some with either of the 2 other strategies. This is undeniable. You could make way more currency per map with Ritual than you do without Ritual. That really speaks to people, it wakes them up. If I tell you I profit over 1 divine per map with Ritual and stacked decks, which is true, your eyeballs are gonna pop out of your head like an old-timey cartoon wolf seeing a pretty lady. But is your life measured in maps, or is it measured in minutes? The currency per hour is competitive, somewhere between 9 and 9.5 divines per hour. It's not worse. But the stacked decks per hour were, at least in my test. I got 588 stacked decks in the span of, 70 minutes? So that's around 500 per hour. I got 411 stacked decks in the span of around 45 minutes, which is about 550 stacked decks per hour. The div per hour difference is within a margin of RNG. I found this surprising. This really shocked me. So ultimately, what's my conclusion here? I think there are two takeaways. First off, 5 Cloister Scarabs is the right call. I stand corrected. I mean, I guess I sit corrected. It's not massively better, but it's better by enough, and it just feels more right to fully min-max that Scarab mod. As for Ritual, it's okay. It's very efficient in terms of costs. If you are barely able to rub 2 Chaos Orbs together, it makes sense. It's significantly less efficient in terms of time and clear speed than not running Ritual, but I do think it's competitive. If you're lucky, it can be a lot better, but that does involve some good RNG. There's always the chance that you hit it big on a good Fractured or Synth base or some sort of Resible Corpse that is valuable, something that's valuable from Ritual. That could happen. But until that does happen, it is slow and kind of boring, and for people who don't like Ritual, me, I think you're justified in skipping it if the prices for stacked decks and Cloister Scarabs remain roughly the same as they are now. Alright, there it is. Stack deck farming is a super strong, super simple strategy, and the only real downside is how many times you have to click each map to pick them all up. I still think it's pretty good. Thanks for watching. Bye.